And welcome aboard the Tabletop Express. I'm back as always, as it seems, for the favorites series with none other than Anthony, Board Game Dads. Anthony, welcome back. I like the topic tonight. I just want to kind of lead with that. I'm excited about this topic.
Yeah, we usually don't do topics that we don't like. That would be kind of weird, right?
Yes, that would be weird, but I think the topic is very appropriate tonight because we're talking about really this idea of games where you get to team up. And I think, again, the phrasing, it's obviously we're talking about the co-op experience in what we're saying with that. The opportunity to team up doesn't necessarily mean that it's strictly a co-op game, but we are talking about that idea of teaming up with someone, your significant other, your spouse, your friend, whatever that may be. Tonight, we're both snowed in, so it's really appropriate, too, that we're talking about something like that, because it's a great thing you could do on a night like this, in my
Snowed
opinion.
in is an understatement. This is pretty epic here, folks, in the northern New Jersey area, and probably for many of you.
Yes.
I think we're well past the 2-foot mark at this point.
It's pretty bad, but what's not bad is playing games. And I want to jump right into this. We'll definitely share some honorable mentions that we were considering talking about tonight before we finish. But let's dive into the ones that we want to talk about. And I'm going to talk about one that I'm pretty sure most people have seen. It's mass market at this point, but I just think it's a great addition to this list, and I think it's important. And that is going to be Codenames. I have a few versions of Codenames. I also have the After Hours version that is not pictured in this photo. I know.
We can't even show you the picture of it because it's so graphic.
But look, Codenames is a great game of that takes you back, I think, to a lot of the games of yore, where you're trying to give clues to what you want someone to think. In this case, you want someone to think about the card that you need. You need them to pick it up, because if they pick up the wrong one, you might actually lose, or you're going to help your opponent. Now, the reason I say Codenames, and the reason I think this one stands out really strong for me, is on the bottom on this one, you see Codenames Duet. That is a two-player, truly co-op experience where you're working together. But the great thing about this game, the great thing about Codenames in itself, is you could compete against other couples. You could compete against other friends. You could set up your teams of 2, 3, whatever it may be, and do that competition. So Anthony and I can team up and take on our wives in a competition, or we could team up with our wives. There's a lot of different ways we could play the game, but we can team up with a partner and have some fun in a great game of Codenames. And for me, that's a big reason why Codenames on the list, because it's versatile in that way. There's a lot of versions. I have not played it, but the Harry Potter version looks like a lot of fun. And I am partial to the Marvel Codenames. The Duet version is a lot of fun. And Pictures is a little bit different because it is more picture focused instead of the words themselves.
Right.
But this variety is a great thing, in my opinion, for a great game.
Yeah, I love this game too. It had a weird sort of identity crisis, I feel like, for a while, where it was being labeled as a party game, and then the argument to that is it's not really a quick game. I'm not saying it's a long game, but for a party game, there's quite a bit of downtime, because you're really thinking about the best clue to give. Obviously, you want to do the best you can. And so there is a point where sometimes you're like, okay, I haven't really said anything in what feels like 10 minutes, but it's probably been a lot shorter than that. But it's not this raucous, laugh 'em up kind of party game. It's definitely a light strategic word game. But it does play great with couples for sure.
Yeah, and I want to note this one came out. I looked it up. It came out back in 2015 on Board Game Geek. It's actually ranked 92. So pretty impressive. Duet is like 156 in Board Game Geek ranks, but it's like 20 in the family category. So again, pretty impressive rankings when you go into the Board Game Geek world, where a lot of people are playing this game. So yeah, right. Great game. If you don't own a copy of Codenames, it's worth trying to find one that might fit your interests. And there's a lot of different themed ones.
Let me ask you specifically about the Marvel one, because I haven't played that.
Yeah.
How thematic is it? Well, not thematic. It's a word game, but like, if you play with someone who's not versed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like would they still be able to play? Would they not enjoy it as much, in your opinion?
I don't know that you would enjoy it as much. You could
Yeah.
still play because there's very clear things going on. I compare it to a lot of the games that are out there, Mysterium, which I think a lot of people could pick up after one play. It takes a little bit to learn Mysterium, but it's that same kind of idea that you're going to take some learning with Marvel. Yes, there's cards of heroes on them, but some of them are very generic. Like
Okay.
you're going to be able to figure out which card they want you to pick up, the card that you're, and it could be through themes of colors or other things or fighting or soldier. So you
Gotcha.
don't
Gotcha.
necessarily need to know Marvel. I think you will enjoy it more if you know Marvel. And there's a Disney one, there's a Harry Potter. I mean, there's a variety of these. This is again
Yeah.
more of a mass market game, but I just think it adds a lot of value whether you're used to playing games or not. I think this is a game you could teach most people, and it's a ton of fun, and it's got all the IPs that you're going to want. So
Yeah, for sure. And there's no end in sight. I'm sure the IPs and the versions expansions will probably keep coming for this one.
agreed completely.
Speaking of expansions, there is a game that I have a few expansions for, and it is my first pick. So I try to pick a different game for different reasons, really. And this one has a special place in the collection because it was the first game that I purchased, sort of falling back into this hobby, this board game renaissance that I discovered, like lots of the rest of us discovered. And the first game that I was presented with was Pandemic, a great cooperative game that my friend Eric taught me. It blew my mind that there was such a game where you played together against the game, right? You were not
Yep.
competing with the other players. This was like mind blowing for me. And after playing, I was like, oh, I'm going to get this game. I'm going to get this game. Spoiler, I didn't get Pandemic, but I got another cooperative game, my first game that I bought, and that's Flashpoint Fire Rescue, which is a very pandemic-like game in that you are working together. It's cooperative. There are different roles that you can take. There are different firefighters that have different special abilities, and there's a couple of actions that everybody can do, right? But there's some firefighters that can, put out fire faster or carry people faster to get them out of the building. And that's the whole idea of this game. The building is on fire, and collectively you're trying to rescue a certain amount of people from the building. When you get to that number, that's how you win the game. You lose the game if, I believe, X amount of people perish in the fire or the building collapses. So, like most cooperative games, there's usually more ways to lose than there is to win. That makes it challenging. But man, this game is so thematic. It's fantastic to look at. It's got a nice board that just shows you like basically a bird's eye view of the house or the apartment or whatever's on fire. And a couple of the expansions even have other types of scenarios. Like there's some I haven't even played. There's I believe an airplane that's like on fire. And maybe
That is
even
not a
like
good situation.
yeah, no, well, I think it's on the ground. And I think a submarine one as well. But if you've never played this game, definitely give it a shot. Artwork is fantastic, gameplay is fantastic, and like I said, just has a special place in my heart because this one really took me down the rabbit hole, to the point where I wanted to play it every day, and I kept bugging my friend to play, and he liked it too, fortunately. But I even played this by myself because I was so focus on learning the rules. Not an easy game to learn by any means. So for my first, new game, it was a lot of rule book stuff, and I would play by myself with a couple of characters just to get the flow better, so that next time I played with my friend, it was just smoother and less, me looking stuff up.
This
So
this game falls on that category of games I keep getting told about and have not played. So
yeah, it's
uh,
fantastic.
it is also one that I imagine I'd like. I think we're gonna have some similar type of games along this path tonight, simply for that reason. This is
Yeah,
definitely a game that I know this is on a lot of people's lists, and I've heard a lot about it. I think again the theme is interesting too, though it sounds like they've stretched that theme a little bit with some of these other
yeah,
expansions,
for
but
sure, for
that's
sure.
okay. That's okay.
And also to note, there is a family version of this game where the number of actions you can take and the special abilities are sort of off to the side, to make a much more simple, choices to make in a family situation where it's a little easier to win. And so if you play this game with younger kids and as they get older, you start to introduce a couple of the special characters. It's a great way to expand on gameplay and get a lot of replayability out of it as well.
And I love the board. I do want to share. I really do think it's a
Yeah, and
pretty neat
that's
board.
only the board that comes with the base game, and that's double-sided. So there's another scenario on the back.
Very cool. I always love that double-sided approach to any of these games. I love your choice of game, by the way, because the game that I wanted to talk about is one that came out in 2013. It is the second in a series of games, and I admit I did not actually play the first one. And I don't know that I will ever play the first one because I've played the second one and like it so much. And from all that I've heard, it really improved upon the first one. And
Okay.
that is Forbidden Desert.
Mm-hmm.
This game is so much fun. I have the piece right here. Not all the stuff was on it, but this is one of the pieces. You're trying to build this airship that I'm holding up. I'm going to put it right by the camera so you can kind of see the size and scale. But you're trying to build this airship. You have crashed in the desert, and the wind and all these things the sandstorms are blustering around. So tiles are moving. Sand is covering up spots. You've got to clean it up. You've got that same pandemic like rolls thing happening. There's different people with different skills. Some people can dig up 2 tiles. I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it's really easy to teach. I believe the game box says 10 and up. I think you can do it sooner than that, first and foremost. But this is one that you're going to be able to play with a lot of your family, bring out to the table, and I think get it to the table pretty quick, even with those people who don't play games all the time. So I think that's a winning point of it. And again, these tiles, pretty decent quality in terms of component. But the neat thing about this game that I think separates it in a lot of ways is just by the way, I'm sorry, I have to highlight this comment that caught my attention. Forbidden is definitely one of the 3 best Forbidden games. Yes, it is, because there are 3, but I really appreciate that comment.
I tell you, Professor Wren is really well versed in board games. She's always got something to bring to the table. I appreciate it.
I love, more of an ever. Sometimes we need to laugh. That one got me laughing. But look, this game, and you can play on different levels. So there is this, new little tracker, and you can start it at a higher difficulty. So you can up the game, make it more difficult. And one of my favorite things in games is when you can make a game get harder over time, because it adds to that replayability. But again, still family friendly, beautiful looking game. I think it just looks cool on the table. And when it comes down to it, a great game to play with people. This plays fine, I think, with 2 people. I think it does great with 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's even more chaotic and fun with 3 people, because now you've got 2 people between your move, and you can start to get pushed back around and covered in sand. And I don't know, I love this game. I will play this game a lot. And this is one of those games I think even the libraries in our communities really need to have a copy of, because it's one that when we can get back in those libraries, easily could come off the shelf and get played and taught. And it adds some real educational value in terms of cooperative and learning how to communicate with one another, because you can talk to each other in this game.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that this is definitely a great family game, because if you're trying to teach some younger folks, like you said, communication skills, you're openly discussing every move, right? Even though everyone is playing their own character, you have to decide as a group what's the best move here, and you might have a disagreement, and that's okay. But it leads to some constructive conversations about that for sure. I own Forbidden Island. I don't have Forbidden Desert, although I have played both. And yeah, I guess Forbidden Desert is a little better now that we're, sort of seasoned gamers. Has a little more to it, but I will never, say that I wouldn't play Forbidden Island again. That's a great one to get out for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, on to my next pick, which again is about cooperation. You are teaming up. And in this instance, you're teaming up to face some very classic, very scary universal monsters. And this game is called Horrified. This is my pick for family game of my list. I think this is great for families for a couple of the reasons we've already talked about on the other games, right? It's cooperative. You're going to be discussing your decisions and the actions that you're taking before you do them. You're going to plan together. You have different characters that are doing different things. Specifically, you can fight against, I think, 6 different monsters and mix and match them any way you want. So the scenarios are all different as well. The way that you defeat Dracula, say, is not the same way you defeat the Invisible Man. Frankenstein and his bride, you're trying to actually get them to sort of humanize and fall in love to get victory that way. It's just a great game. I think it's really easy to teach because even though there's so much going on in all those different scenarios, the core mechanisms are the same throughout. You're really just collecting three colored types of resources, really, and using them to solve and satisfy different conditions in different ways. There's also townspeople you're trying to drag around town and protect them. And it's just a great one. As you can see, the board is fantastic. You get the whole village there. The miniatures are great too that come with this game. It's just fantastic. I cannot wait to play this game when my children are older, because I think this one is going to stay around for a really long time.
I think this has a ton of potential to be around a long time as well. I will say the villager piece is interesting too, because you're going to try and move them to very specific spots, but that's not always easy. And and to me, this game again, I really like this game. I could say a lot about this, but what I will say about this game is the fact that it is in my collection, and it's in my collection for a reason. And I can't imagine this game going anywhere. Now, I apparently failed miserably, by the way, in my loading of photos to actually load my photo for the next game. So because I did fail, I brought the goods, and I want to talk about this one. And that one is Magic Maze. Magic Maze is a ridiculous game. Let me tell you, it is ridiculous. The concept and plot. Look, if you're looking for a theme, and if you ask someone what is the theme of Magic Maze, they're going to say a lot of different things, and they're going to be wrong. They're going to be wrong. Now, I have written down the description of Magic Maze because I think this is really important to read. After being stripped of all their possessions, a mage, a warrior, an elf, and a dwarf are forced to go rob the local Magic Maze shopping mall for all the equipment necessary for their next adventure. That is the theme, if you would call it. But Magic Maze is really neat because in Magic Maze, you've got these mall tiles down. They're set up in these very specific ways based on missions and whatnot. And there's actually a log of missions. On the back of this book is scenarios. So you're going to go through. There's a kind of campaign that you're doing. But in Magic Maze, everyone controls everyone. There's a little bit of twist to that. Everyone doesn't have the ability to move them in the same way. I may be able to move someone up an escalator and to the right. You might be able to move them to the left and down. There's a lot of different ways based on to move around, and it all depends on what ability you have to move them. But you've got a goal that you want to accomplish. They're all very different. I will admit I love this game so much. I got the expansion, which adds modular updates. So it's really neat because you can make it more challenging and add some kind of fun stuff in. But again, the plot of this game is silly and ridiculous, but the game is so much fun. I actually put this on as my recommendation, not just for families. There is a Magic Maze, like a junior version of it, like my first Magic Maze. So if you want to be real young, you can do that.
Good. It's teach them how to loot from a young age. That's fantastic.
Yes, but it is a communication game. You can't really talk to each other. You got 3 minutes to get stuff done, and then you've got to make sure you flip over the glass and then keep the timer going. So you're constantly communicating without saying anything to each other. The most of this game, minus an occasional moment where you put a thing down and everyone can kind of talk and say, okay,
right.
What are we doing? But great game. I love this game. Again, I think the point, if you want to call it the plot point, is so silly, but it's fun. And you'll have a good time playing it. And you can, to me, make some fun stories from it. I always I do this with Betrayal, which is not on my list because there is a traitor component in that. But Betrayal is a game where I always like to make a story behind my people. And I do the same thing in this game.
Nice. Yeah, I have played the Magic Maze before. It's quite chaotic and it's really fun. The no talking thing is hilarious because at some point, someone inevitably is going to not see something that's a move that everyone else sees except them, but nobody can say anything. And so they start, banging on the table and putting the thing in front of their face. And it's like, lots of laughs here.
It's great for work too. I'm going to say this right now. If you're looking for a game to do communication stuff for work, it works really well. That ain't the topic. We could probably do a topic on great games for building skills for work, but
oh yeah,
this falls into it.
For sure. All right, so moving from one really out there wacky theme to a totally realistic theme, and that's time travel. Um, my pick of Back to the Future, Back in Time. This is my cooperative pick for the most thematic game in this setting. It is the first movie in a box. I know that's a cliche to say about games these days, but I finally have a game where I get to say that, so I'm going to say it. This is Back to the Future in a box. It's super thematic. It has the cooperation in that your winning condition is you have to get George and Elaine to fall in love. It's such a different thing, right? And it's reminiscent to what I said about Horrified, because it's funny that one scenario with Frankenstein and the Bride is kind of the same thing. But in this, it follows every plot point in the movie. There are the same locations on the map. There are the same characters. There's a lot of the same, just brief moments on a card, like not like an inside joke or like just a small thing from the movie that if you're a fan, you're really going to appreciate. The artwork is fantastic. It is very cartoony. You can see Doc there and Einstein, and I like that. I'm glad they didn't try to make it look super realistic. I'm glad they didn't do screenshots. As much as I love Back to the Future, this theme, the way this game is designed, it needs that sort of illustrated look to it, and it does that for sure. What's the other? Oh, the great thematic thing with the timer. In the movie, Marty's got that picture of his siblings, him and his siblings, and it starts to fade away at different parts in the movie. That happens in this game. You turn the photos over and they start to disappear. And that's when it's all gone. That's how you lose. And you're trying to get the DeLorean to the right spot and get all the parts for the DeLorean and get George and Elaine together. And of course, Biff and his cronies are always popping up. There you go. Yes, Biff is the worst. There's one thing about rolling dice and getting like a crappy roll, right? Like you need a 6 and you get like a 1. But in this game, you roll and just Biff's stupid face is on the dice. And it's just like you roll like 4 of them and just like bam, 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 bam. Just Biff. You're like, shut up. So thematic. Love this game. Chris, I know you want to borrow this one. I think you are going to absolutely love it, and I would not be surprised if you purchased it afterwards. Fantastic.
I'm fairly certain you'll do what you did in a few other games, which make you do that. And there is a note here in the chat, and I want to point out, which is, and I knew this before, but you could play as the dog, which again, I just think it's really cool how they do this theme and do it justice. And I think that's the biggest thing. When you talk about the work that has been done, not just with Back to the Future, but so many of the other games that they're putting out, they're just hitting home runs left and right.
Yeah,
left and right. And you get this on the shelf at Target. I mean, we are starting to see a quality of Target game. I'll call it a Target game, I guess, but a really mass market game that is hitting on a level that pleases both the modern board gamer and is a great introduction into it at the same time. Right, and I love that. Right. So
yeah, it's funny. The term mass market game, at least when I first started getting back into this hobby, almost had like a negative connotation to it, right? Because it was okay, Monopoly and Game of Life and Scrabble and whatnot, and those games are fine. But there were also a lot of really bad, Target games, Walmart games, right? This random knockoff Disney thing and like this, shuffle up these pieces and make a match. There are such quality games in these stores now. It's really, really great. And it's just great for the hobby, and it's great for all the families that are trying to play games.
Yeah. Well, the game I want to talk about next is definitely a little bit different. I honestly want to tell you, I considered putting an even more brutal game on this list. I did not, but I did put a game on the list called The Grizzled. It's by Sweet Games, I believe. Published in 2015. There's an Armistice version of this game. You want a tough game. This is the game I put out to the partners who want a challenge. This game is hard. You're probably going to lose. You really are going through, you're playing cards, you're trying to get through, and you got to get through all the cards. And ultimately, if one threat shows up too many times, you lose this game. But you're deciding, someone's deciding how many cards you're going to draw this round. And it is challenging because so there is some of that. I think what I take when I talk about the crew and trick taking, some of that going on where yes, you got to pick a decision maker in the crew. In this case, you've got to pick a decision maker and you're making these decisions. But if you see actually, as you kind of tell on the top of this image, there's also these things happening going where someone's absentee, someone goes mute. There's a lot of things that are making the game even more challenging. This game is not for the lighthearted in the sense that if you want to win all the time, you're not going to like this game. I almost put Robinson Crusoe on this list because it is actually a great game to play with people, but you have to really want to lose. This game in particular, I don't think it's as brutal as a Robinson Crusoe, but it's tough. And quite frankly, I wanted a game with a little bit of challenge that I could share with people. And this one is that. Grizzled. There's an Armistice version. There is I don't know if the expansion include with that, but there's actually an expansion to this game as well that I do not own. But I really love this game. It is not easy, though. So if you want to challenge, go check that one out. I think they did a great job with that game. I don't see it on lists all the time now, but I think it is worth checking out if you have a chance to try it. And you want a chance to appreciate a true victory when you win that game. Oh, man, you're pumped. You are pumped.
Yeah, I haven't played this, and I did hear. I feel like I heard a lot about it when it first came out, and then it sort of fizzled, at least from what I hear. But what do I know? But it sounds you kind of sold me on it. I would give it a shot for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, I did look this up beforehand, and on Board Game Geek, obviously, you could call the rankings what they are. It ranks like 400, which honestly is still semi-impressive with the amount of games on there.
Correct.
But thematic ranking was like 119, which holds pretty decent ground in terms of theme and that overall immersion in game, in my opinion, for a game that I haven't heard much about. So I give it some credit just for that alone. So I'll like I say, I'll send it over your way and you could try it out, but it's definitely tough. You lose a lot in this game, and that's fine. It's fine when you can lose together.
Agreed. Well, speaking of losing together, my next game is, I don't know, I guess it's a little bit of a stretch for this list, but because of the whole partner up thing, but you're partnering with a bunch of people. It's another co-op. All right. I mean, if you haven't guessed by now, all my games are co-ops. This one is a little different though, because it has a bit of a twist where there is the possibility that one of the players is a traitor. This game is called Shadows over Camelot. This is probably the oldest game on my list for sure. It is one that I got pretty early on in the hobby, and for as old as it is, it hasn't like aged out or anything. People are always excited to play this game. You are playing King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, trying to fight off a bunch of these evil things that are happening in Camelot, and again, there's the chance. So at the beginning of the game, you hand out cards randomly that says you're either loyal or a traitor, but you don't even know if there is a traitor card in that deck that you just passed out. So there's this aura of suspicion that floats around for the whole game to the point where you're accusing people left and right, sort of on the side. You have to actually accuse as like an action. It's sort of a big deal if you agree that you're going to accuse somebody. Yep. But there's a possibility that there is no traitor, which is hilarious because everybody just points fingers and turns out that nobody was really wrong. But there's so much to do in this game. It's got a very thematic feel. If you're familiar with the Arthurian legends at all, with the different knights and Lancelot's sword and the Holy Grail and all this stuff. But the mechanics of it are really simple. It's kind of like playing poker hands. You're trying to get 2 or 3 of a kind of a certain number card, or an ascending straight of 1 through 5. That's how you sort of satisfy these different quests. The board looks amazing. It's so overwhelming when you first look at it, and you might be thinking, there's no way I can play this game. There's so much going on. But each thing is its own little challenge, and once you get into the groove of it, it's not that overwhelming at all. This is fantastic. Monty Python jokes fly left and right with this game. And like I said, just accusations all over the place. Very memorable plays of this game for sure.
This game definitely memorable. I don't get this out much. I own it as well. If you can get a copy of it now, you are lucky. The expansion for this I would love, but it goes for an insane amount of money. So if you know someone who has this game, I would recommend get a game in of it, get a game or two in of it. It is a ton of fun. And I do like the fact that you actually don't know. Like a lot of games, there's a traitor.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have no clue if there's actually a traitor. There's no guarantee.
Right.
And it adds a dimension to it. And the quests, I think, as you pointed out, they are actually fairly simple in terms of the basic gameplay and doing. I think you can teach this game relatively easily, which you don't get with a lot of games that have.
Oh yeah.
It looks complex. I guess that's the way I would describe this. This game looks a lot more complex than it is. The most complex part of a game is figuring out, do we have a traitor or not? And do we need to kind of point our fingers at someone? But as the traitor, you've got some options too, which I think are nice.
Right. And then once the traitor, if there is one, is revealed, the game doesn't immediately end. It's then just open information. It's still, okay, we're trying to defeat the traitor now.
They can choose, if I remember this correctly, they could choose to reveal themselves. I forget if I believe they can.
I think you're correct. Yeah, I forget what the conditions are on that, but there's so much going on, and like you said, because of the accusations. What's funny in this game is whenever it's your turn, you get a couple of actions, do something with your character, and there are some special abilities with the characters as well. But you always have to do something bad at the end of your turn.
Yes.
So it's either, okay, I'm going to add a catapult to the center board here, which if there's whatever 12 or 15 of them, I forget what it is, you die, you lose. Or I can take this black evil card, which is always bad stuff, right? Wait. Or you can take a life point and lose life. And so it's an interesting strategy where if you are the traitor, how do you manage the bad stuff that's happening, right?
What's the level of bad you're going to go to?
Exactly, because you want to try to stay hidden for a while. So do you sacrifice a life point? You'd be like, the traitor would never take away life points. You only get like 4 life points in this game. You can actually die. Your character can die. Your character can be resurrected if you've completed the Holy Grail quest. And even if you do die, the game isn't over. If the rest of the knights win, you sort of win, posthumously, which is a ton of fun anyway, because you can still gloat about the victory.
Yeah, I love this choice. I think it's a great game. I wish I got to play it more often than I do. This and Battlestar Galactica are 2 games that I don't get to play enough. Quite frankly,
I have not played that.
Well, I would like to talk in a moment about the last one that I'll be talking about tonight. But before we do that, I want to just be able to give us a chance to say some of the ones we were thinking about. As I mentioned, I was considering Robinson Crusoe. Another one I really considered, and I think it's great for the kids. At a certain age, I don't think you need to wait too long because it's Yahtzee-like and there's a variety of these. I happen to like Rising Thanos. There's a Harry Potter one like this, and there's a Star Wars one, which is Rise of the Empire. I don't know the name of the Star Wars one off the top of my head, so someone can correct me in the chat. But Rising Thanos, Marvel fan, fighting Thanos, teaming up. You got to beat as many of the bad guys as possible before Thanos knocks out enough of yours, or he gets all the stones. So thematically, fantastic, fun game. So that one almost happened. I will save that one for another video.
Okay.
But that one just short of me sharing tonight, but I do love that one. That would be on certainly a recommendation list. So you can look that one up.
Nice. Yeah, I've got a couple of honorable mentions here as well. The first one is a co-op game that came out just this past year, and that's called Wonder Woman. I think Rise of the Amazons. Is that the full title? Challenge of the Amazons. Sorry.
There you go.
It didn't make my list only because I've played it only one time, but I did want to mention it because it was, for me, a game that was a pleasant surprise. Like, I didn't think I was going to like this game. I had saw when it first came out, and I was like, well, whatever, Wonder Woman. I don't really know a lot about the DC universe overall, besides like some Batman stuff. But my buddy over at the Meeples Republic recommended it. He said, hey, this is on sale. You guys should pick it up. And we actually played it with our friends over Zoom, which was fantastic. So I did like it a lot. Just I have to get some more plays of it if I'm going to put it on a list like this. And then the second one, I got to piggyback. I almost said it way back when you mentioned it the first time, is also Robinson Crusoe, Adventures on the Cursed Island. And fun fact, today, February the 1st, is actually Robinson Crusoe Day.
We didn't plan it.
We did not.
This is just coincidence. And Robinson Crusoe is literally sitting behind me, actually right there. It's hard to tell, but it's sitting there. Because I was thinking about it.
Well, if you're interested, you can check out my channel. And Eric and I did a deep dive on some aspects of Robinson Crusoe, as well as some other survival games for our board game holiday spotlight. Plug, wink, wink.
We'll drop that I will make sure I drop that also in the details of this video. So you can see that on my channel. And if you're on Anthony's channel, you can definitely go and check that out. So I got to say this, Anthony, this is, I think, the first time we've done this, but I have to go ahead and I've got to share a game in my final spot that you've talked about today.
Oh, a crossover.
Horrified.
Aha.
I love this game. I do not dislike Pandemic. I feel like I have to open with that. I do not dislike Pandemic. I think Pandemic is a great game. I think I've come to the point where I'd probably rather go try the Pandemic Legacy games than play base Pandemic. Horrified, however, has become that game, if I want that Pandemic-like game, that I'm playing with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And this doesn't just have to be my family. You talked about it as a family game, and I agree. But I think it's just fun. The actions are simple, yes, but the game is not necessarily easy. And you can choose how many monsters you're going against.
Right. So back to what you said, you can scale the difficulty, which is great.
Yeah. So the scalability of this is great. I think being able to teach it is pretty easy. And I love this opening. This is, you open the box and you see this. You want to talk about taking someone in thematically and immersing them in a game. I mean, you are about to unfold one of the strangest tales ever told. We think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. And there's the name of the game, essentially, right there. Horrified. So again, I give him so much credit for this game. This game is just a beautiful game. You could see some of these pieces that are in there and some of the spaces that might come down, but games are going to vary. There's different little tokens are going to be on the board that are going to make everything slightly different, and the replayability is high. So for me, yeah, I got to say, Horrified has taken a big spot for me in terms of games that play well with others, and you get to team up. It's fun to team up and fight some monsters.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a broad sort of scope of the monsters, right? It's not super focused in on one type, right? It's not Cthulhu or like aliens or something like that. It's these universal monsters, which so many people know. I mean, it's everybody knows who the Wolfman is. Everyone knows Frankenstein's monster. These are highly recognizable. So when you see this on the shelf and you see that cover, more people are going to be drawn to that than if there was a picture of, I don't know, Cthulhu or something like that. So
and I want to point out this comment because, again, Professor Anna hitting a home run. It does have a classic theme, and I agree. I don't think it will get outdated.
Nah.
I think this one can stand and, come back in 5 years and we'll see. But I think this can stand the test of time for quite a bit because it's these classic monsters still haven't become outdated. We're still bringing them back. So.
Agreed. All right. So for my final pick, this is an interesting pick for me for a couple of reasons. The first reason is this is the only game on my list that I do not own. However, I did want to choose it because I have played it several times, and it is the heaviest game on my list, the most complicated, crunchiest game for sure. And this game is called Spirit Island. Again, I don't own this. My friends Eric and Melissa do, and I've played it with them a lot. This is a heavy game. You're going to play this game for probably 2 hours, if not more, but it doesn't feel that way. There's, again, so much decision-making going on as a group, and you want to talk about special abilities. The whole premise of this is, these people are coming to sort of colonize this island, right? Which is something that we see in lots and lots of games to the point where it's almost overdone. But this totally flips that, and you are now like the island. You are the living spirits of this place that do not want these people to come and take over your land. So you're trying your best to expel them and get rid of them. And every one of the characters you can play as, all of these spirits have so many different abilities. They complement each other in various ways. The player boards in this game even have the different areas that they're good at and where they're weak at. So before you even play, in just the decision making of who you're going to play as, there's already cooperation going on. And that's fantastic because you're working together from the beginning, right? You're not competing. You want to be, oh, I want to be the strongest spirit. Oh, I'm good at this. Okay, you can balance that out because you have this special thing and I'm really weak in that area. So much going on, great components. I'm so glad that I learned this game. And again, I think Professor Wren can probably speak to this, but a lot of expansions. They just keep adding new types of spirits, and that's really cool. This game is fantastic.
I own this game. I have
Oh, you do? Okay.
I have mostly played it solo, which it does well.
Ah, interesting.
But it's tough. I go back. I mean, you like I said, you want to talk about this is. I don't want to say. I want to say it's Robinson Crusoe tough, but it might be. It is not a hard game. I mean, I say it is not a hard game to love,
Right.
but it is definitely a difficult game to master.
Oh yeah.
And I love the twist that you are the spirit. I think if you have the base game, you're good for a while. I think the expansions add value, but the base game is so much to it that this game is going. I mean, eventually, if you need all the expansions, you've probably played the game a lot. If you need them, not want them. I want to stress that. I don't need every expansion to Tiny Town, but I want every expansion to Tiny Town. Same type of thing here. You may not need them, but I understand if you'll want them because they're pretty cool. They are very
for sure. And the artwork is so cool in this game. And I think it's definitely the hardest one, I think, on my list as well. But I would say it's a step below Robinson Crusoe for the mere fact that much more often in Spirit Island, there are moments where you feel like, all right, nice. We took care of that thing. We have a turn or two to kind of like regroup and focus on something that we couldn't do earlier. Whereas in Robinson Crusoe, I mean, you just get slapped left and right, and then somebody kicks you from behind, and then your face is in the sand, and the game is over, and you die.
We do have a comment from Danielle coming in. Spirit Island solo is challenging for sure. I've never won playing solo. I much prefer playing with at least one person. And Danielle in particular, I can say, does a lot of solo gaming. So to hear that from Danielle, that goes to tell you how challenging it is, first and foremost, in my opinion, because she does like her solo gaming.
How many spirits do you control when you play solo? Is it just one?
You know what? I'm trying to remember because it's probably been a year since I've pulled the box out.
Danielle let us
probably
know.
can actually answer that for us. So I'm gonna put this on you, Danielle, to help me out. But I will say again, I'm glad it's in my collection, even if it doesn't get played a lot. This is a game that I'm glad is there because I can pull it out. I could pull it out with someone, and again, it's not necessarily something I'm jumping out with the family right now.
Right.
But I'd love to work it up to that point. I'd love to work it up to the point where my family will play this. I'd love to hear if anyone in chat has a favorite game that they think hits this theme of just teaming up. What is that like? What games come to your mind? Does not have to be a true full co-op. Again, that's the reason we called it Team Up. If we're talking solely co-op games, it'd be a little bit different, But I will say that's a reason, for example, why I think of a lot of games that are co-op. I like Betrayal. Again, but that is one that has a traitor specifically. But I love that game. We'll talk about that sometime when we do, maybe around Halloween. We could talk about some mystery stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And Daniel says she plays one-handed. She can't imagine playing two spirits. So we do have.
That's true. That would be a lot to take care of, I guess.
I'm gonna clap for this one, Marvel Champions. This was almost on my list. The reason that this. Again, and these lists not generally are my top 5, right? Trying to split up, and I wanted to share some variety. But Marvel Champions is one of my favorite games. It's in my top 15 if I had to rank games. So, great choice. The wife and I play Marvel Champions. She's Black Widow, pretty much religiously, religiously Captain America. So
really,
yes,
I didn't know you like Captain America.
Maybe, just maybe. There's not a shield behind me or anything. Danielle coming in, Elder Sign, Marvel Champ. Do you see we get more Marvel Champions? I love it. And then Aeon's End, which is not played, but I've heard a lot of amazing things about it.
I used to own Elder Sign, and it's actually one of the games that I got rid of. I liked it. I found that I found like nobody that I played with liked it enough to keep it around. It just didn't get out that much.
Yep.
And I even had an expansion or two for it. It just never really got to the table. So, I was in a position to trade some games and get some new ones, and I let that one go. But I would definitely play it if somebody brought it up, for sure. And real quick, Josue as well. Going back to the code names thing, they own the original at home, and that's all you need, right? You don't need all these other versions. The original will last you so long. There's so many cards, and they're double sided. So there's that.
Yeah, and we got City Skylines coming in from Professor Wren here. So some great game suggestions coming in from the audience tonight. So I want to thank everyone for certainly sharing. The other thing I'd say, if there's any topics you'd like Anthony and I to cover on this favorite series, let us know. As you can see, we'd love to try and cover some different, more unique topics. Give us a chance to flex our brain muscles. But definitely a lot of great things. Anthony, I do want to say too, I know you dropped it, but to remind everybody that Anthony does have a video that he talked about today, talking about Robinson Crusoe. So please go over to his channel if you're on the Tabletop Express watching this, or on the Facebook, check that out. I will also encourage people to go check over on my channel. I think I scheduled about 7 videos in the past 36 hours. We've got some great Creators Corner coming up. Shem Phillips is coming on, and a variety of other folks going to be joining there. So you'll see more promotion there. And I have now in March coming some roundtable discussions, including a topic of accessibility in board gaming with 2 really terrific guests.
Ooh.
I will talk more about that in the future. We got some time before March, but we've got some great designers coming to the show for that. So hopefully you can tune into that. Anthony, I will be back. Anthony, anything else you want to share before we go and let everyone off the train here?
No, you guys are welcome to get off. Make sure you have all your personal belongings. We can't be held responsible for things like that. So, check around you and wear your masks.
Yes, wear your mask. And I want to
And
thank
in
you.
all seriousness, be careful tomorrow when you're out there shoveling or snow blowing tons of snow. This is unprecedented here. Take a break every now and again.
If you are if you are in the middle of this snowstorm, please be careful. Again, thank you for joining. Again, my name is Chris of the Tabletop Express.
I'm Anthony.
Whoa, wrong way. We gotta master that. See and then again, if you can get a chance, if you're not liking or subscribing to one of our channels, go ahead, do that. Both Anthony are on the mission to 100 because we want to have a branded URL.
Yeah, who's winning this, by the way? I'm at 38 subscribers. What's your count?
I can check. I think I'm at 54.
Oh man.
So
kicking my butt.
Friendly competition. But we want to thank you for all your friendly comments. Have a great evening, and thank you for coming aboard the Tabletop Express.